I thought I'd found my love, but all the while he was calling me pathetic and too stupid to suspect anything. You won't believe how I made him pay for all those words and actions. I always thought Brian and I were lucky. We met 5 years ago when I was a manager at a local gym and he came in to recover from an injury. He was so charming, so driven, he always knew what he wanted. I fell for him instantly. We started dating and a year later we were living together. Our life felt like a movie. I always dreamed of having my own business, and one day we decided to open a small health food store. I took out a bank loan, Brian added his savings, and we invested all our money into the business. Our store became really popular and we started making a good profit. Everything was going smoothly. I managed the finances and Brian handled the marketing. I thought we were the perfect team. But over time I started to notice that Brian was changing. He became more withdrawn, less responsive. He often stayed late at work, and when I asked why, he'd say he had a lot to do. He started checking his phone more often, and when I asked him to watch something with me, he'd immediately turn it off. I felt like something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what. Our store kept thriving, but I began to notice that our income was decreasing. I checked our accounts and everything seemed fine. But when I compared our income to the previous month, I saw that something was off. I asked Brian why that was happening, and he said we had a lot of new expenses. I couldn't understand what expenses he meant because I always kept track of all our spending. I began to suspect Brian was hiding something from me. I started watching him. He often left the house without saying where he was going. He became more aggressive when I questioned him about anything. I started to feel lonely. I couldn't understand what was going on. One night, while Brian was asleep, I decided to check his phone. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't take it anymore. I opened his messages and saw he was texting some woman named Elizabeth. I read their conversation and felt sick. He was writing to her that he loved her, that he wanted to spend his whole life with her. He was calling me pathetic and too stupid to suspect anything. He wrote to her that he was using me to get money for their future. I couldn't believe my eyes. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I felt so betrayed. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to do something. I couldn't just confront him. I couldn't just scream and throw his things out the window, even though that's all I wanted to do. That would be too easy for him. He'd just leave and move on to his little Elizabeth, and I'd be left with nothing but a broken heart and a business drowning in debt. No, I had to think of something smarter, something that would hurt him as much as he hurt me. I had to play his game, but on my terms. I started acting as if nothing had happened. The next morning I woke up, kissed him goodbye like I always did, and went to work. But inside I was a coiled spring. Every touch, every word, every glance from him felt like a lie. He'd look at me and smile, and I'd see a fake, calculating smirk instead of the man I loved. I started paying close attention to everything, analyzing his every move. He'd get calls from a number saved as Elizabeth's, and he'd sneak off to the other room to talk, his voice low. He'd come back with a sheepish grin, saying it was a business call or his mom. I'd pretend to believe him, nodding along, asking him about the business deal. It was disgusting, but I had to keep up the charade. I started to check our business accounts more often. I went through all the recent transactions. He'd been siphoning off money for months, small amounts at first, then larger and larger ones. He'd create fake invoices for suppliers, paying for things we never received. He'd pay consultants for services that were never rendered. All the money was going into an account that I didn't recognize. An account I was certain was his secret stash for his little second life. I didn't let on that I knew. I'd ask him about our business's finances, pretending to be concerned about the drop in profits. He'd get nervous and tell me not to worry, that he was handling it. He'd act all confident, talking about some big new marketing strategy that would fix everything. He was a good actor, I'll give him that. But I knew the truth, and that knowledge was my fuel. Every day, the emotional toll grew heavier. It was exhausting pretending to be in love with a man who was systematically destroying my life. The nights were the worst. I'd lie in bed next to him, feeling a mix of rage and despair. Sometimes I'd just stare at him, thinking about how he could be so cruel, so heartless. I would think of all the promises he made, all the dreams we shared, and they'd all turn to ash in my mind. The man I knew was a ghost, a carefully constructed illusion. I had to find out more. I needed proof, solid evidence that I could use. I needed to know exactly how much he had taken and where it all went. My rage was cold and calculated now. It wasn't about love anymore. It was about justice. It was about making him pay for every dollar, every lie, and every whispered insult. I was going to make sure he lost everything he was trying to build, and I was going to do it so he couldn't even see it coming. He thought I was stupid, that I was pathetic. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. My investigation into Brian's secret life continued. I was in a constant state of hyper-awareness, my senses on high alert for any hint of a new transaction, a whispered conversation, or a furtive glance at his phone. It was an exhausting existence, but I was so close to having everything I needed. One afternoon while Brian was on a business trip, I knew he was with her. I decided to take the next step. I went to the office and dug through the physical files, looking for anything that seemed out of place. I found a separate folder, tucked away behind a stack of old receipts. Inside were bank statements I'd never seen before, all under an account number that was unfamiliar. But what really made my blood run cold were the names on the account. Brian and Elizabeth. They had a joint bank account. All the money he'd been siphoning off, all the business expenses, they were all going into this account, a fund they were building together. The truth hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just a secret affair. He was building a life with her, using my money, our money, the money from a business I had put my heart and soul into. The rage I had been feeling simmered into something cold and sharp. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about a calculated, cruel theft. He wasn't just cheating on me, he was stealing from me, from our future, from the dreams we built together. That night when he came home, I pretended to be asleep. I couldn't bear the thought of him touching me, his hands on my back, his breath on my neck, all while he was thinking about her. He probably even thought he was being clever, getting away with everything. The thought of his smug satisfaction made me sick. I lay there, feeling the full weight of the betrayal. He was selling off my hard work, my dreams, for his secret life. I couldn't just stand by and watch. I had to act. Then, a new detail emerged that made everything even more intense. I was on the phone with my Aunt Carol, a kind and somewhat naive woman who had always been a rock for our family. She started talking about some investment opportunity her new friend had told her about, a chance to get in on a ground-floor health food business that was about to go big. My blood ran cold when she mentioned the name of the guy who had pitched it to her. "He's such a sweet, respectable young man," she said. "His name is Brian. Brian Adams." My hand started shaking. Couldn't be a coincidence. He was not just stealing from me. He was trying to scam my own aunt. He was selling my aunt's life savings for his secret life. The betrayal was no longer just about me. It was now about my family, my aunt who trusted me. He was using our business's reputation, my name, to deceive someone I loved. The conflict had just escalated from a personal one to a moral one. I was no longer just a wronged woman. I was an accomplice to a fraud, even if I was an unknowing one. My heart pounded in my chest. He had crossed a line that I didn't think was possible. The stakes were no longer just my money and my pride. They were my aunt's financial security. I had to stop him, and I had to do it without him knowing what I was up to. The discovery about my Aunt Carol's investment was a game changer. The cold fury I felt before turned into a burning resolve. This was no longer just about getting revenge. It was about protecting my family from a man who had no morals. I had to expose him, but I couldn't just drop the bomb. I had to do it strategically so he would feel the same slow, agonizing burn of betrayal that I did. I started a new, even more meticulous investigation. I secretly went through all the financial records of our business again, this time looking for any trace of an account under my name. I knew he was trying to build a new business, and I had a hunch he was going to try to use our company's reputation to get more money from unsuspecting people like my aunt. He was so proud of what we built, so he would never want to ruin it. He would use it for his own gain, but in a way that wouldn't damage the business itself. I was right. I found a separate ledger, hidden inside an old box of holiday decorations. It was a list of potential new investors. And right at the top was my aunt's name, along with a note about the amount she was willing to invest. My stomach twisted in knots. I felt so guilty for not seeing this sooner. I had to act fast. I decided to confront him, but not in the way he'd expect. I didn't want to get into a shouting match or a physical fight. I wanted to hit him where it hurt the most. His ego. His pride. His false sense of superiority. That evening when he came home, I cooked his favorite meal. I lit candles, put on some music, and acted as if everything was perfect. He was a little suspicious at first, but soon he relaxed, basking in the glow of my attention. We ate dinner, and I listened to him talk about his business plans and how busy he was. I just smiled and nodded, pretending to be the naive, pathetic girl he thought I was. Then I dropped the first bomb. I brought up my aunt. Carol called today, I said, a casual tone in my voice. She was talking about this amazing business opportunity. Said she's going to invest her life savings in a new health food company. He froze, a piece of food halfway to his mouth. His eyes darted around the room, a flicker of panic in them. Oh, really? I didn't know she was interested in that. Yeah, I said, my voice still sweet. She said the guy who pitched it to her was a real go-getter. A real genius. What a great reputation he must have, right? He just stared at me, his face pale. He was trying to figure out what I knew, but he couldn't. I was in control now. I had the power. And he had no idea what was coming. The moment was so tense you could cut the air with a knife. He was about to find out just how stupid and pathetic I wasn't. His face was a mask of confusion and fear. He couldn't figure out if I knew everything or if this was just a coincidence. She just mentioned it in passing. He stammered, his voice tight. She didn't say who. Oh, she did, I said, my smile not reaching my eyes. She said he's a genius. She's been singing his praises. I'm so proud of you, Brian. Seems like you've been working on something big. The silence was deafening. He knew I knew. The game was over. You went through my things? He said, his voice a low growl. No, Brian, I replied, my voice as calm as a summer night. I just started paying attention. You made it so easy for me. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, picking up a folder from the counter. I opened it and laid it out on the table. Inside were copies of the fake invoices, the bank statements, and the list of investors, including my aunt. His face went from pale to ashen. He stared at the documents, then at me. How did you? You underestimated me, I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You called me pathetic, remember? Too stupid to suspect anything. Well, maybe I'm a good actress just like you. I learned from the best. He didn't have anything to say. He just sat there, defeated. What are you going to do? He finally whispered, his voice barely audible. What am I going to do? I asked, my voice rising. I'm going to make you pay. Not with money, Brian. With your pride. With your reputation. I'm going to make sure your genius business never gets off the ground. I'm going to make sure my aunt and all the other investors are safe. You can't, he said, shaking his head. They'll believe me. They won't believe you. Oh, they will, I said, my voice full of steel. Because I'm going to give them all the proof they need. And I'm going to tell them everything. About you, about Elizabeth, about how you've been stealing from me and our business. You won't just lose the money, Brian. You'll lose your reputation, your name, everything you've ever worked for. You'll be nothing but a liar and a thief. He just sat there, his head in his hands. He was a broken man, stripped of his lies, his ego, his fake life. I had one. But as I stood there, looking at the wreckage of our life, I didn't feel any sense of victory. I didn't feel happy or vindicated. I felt an emptiness so deep it hurt. I had saved my family, I had protected my business, but I had lost the man I once loved. And I was left with a chilling realization. Sometimes winning a war means losing yourself in the process. I had become just as calculating and ruthless as he was. I had won, but what had I really won?